I recently spent many hours on this screen in Celeste. I must have died hundreds and hundreds of times, but instead of giving up like I would usually do in difficult games, I powered through and got to the end. All without getting that mad at all, really. Why? Well, it's perfectly likely that I'm just a masochist who loves plummeting into purple spikes, but in other games with a lot of difficulty, I find myself giving up a lot quicker, and it got me thinking. I think it has something to do with the abilities your player character has, health upgrades, damage upgrades, new abilities through skill trees, versus player skill. How good you personally are at a game and how they both progress through a game. This is, and I'm sorry for the pronunciation, Shikibu Toshikatsu Yamauchi. He is an optional mini-boss. Not even that, I don't think. He's just an enemy, a micro-boss maybe. He has these incredibly frustrating stab attacks that are very hard to deal with. I bashed my head at him for an hour, and eventually just rage uninstalled the game. I didn't want to quit, though. I wanted to destroy this stabby rage machine, but I was getting a bit too angry. When I calmed down, I got to thinking. I know that from playing the game, I could leave and level for a while, and eventually I'd be able to acquire more health and abilities by spending experience in the skill tree, but I didn't do that. If I left and went off and grinded enemies to get more cool sword tricks and more health, then it feels like I'm just caving to my lack of skill. Which, to be fair, I would say I do have. It feels to me that the only way I can win in this is if my character has better stats. Not through me, Porcheg, getting better as a person. Let me quickly try and explain what I mean with the power of paint and this graph. Okay, so time is on the x-axis and skill is on the y-axis. Imagine the difficulty of this guy is constant at the red line. He doesn't get more hard or less hard depending on how much you've played the game. When you start the game, you know almost nothing, especially for me who had never played a Souls-like before. Your skill as a person is the blue line. The more enemies you defeat, the better you get at understanding when to parry. You'll start to notice tells for attacks, you get better at sneaking, all going up more until you hit your skill ceiling. Now the green line here represents your skill as a person, but on top of that, added to that, is Sekiro's skill as a swordsman in the game. The more enemies Sekiro kills, the more experience that he gets to spend on cool sword moves, unlocking more gourds, which increase Sekiro's health. This amplifies your overall ability to be good at and get through the game. Now, when I got to your boy here, I was not good enough to take him on. I felt that the game wanted me to leave and level up both my skill and Sekiro's skill. My problem with that is this. Either you as a person and your character do not have the combined skills to face a challenge and it's too hard. Now I think this is probably where I was when I reached your man. I'm not going to try and say his name again. Or your character has all the abilities and upgrades and you've played the game inside out and you're a god. So the challenge is non-existent. Somewhere up here probably. Ideally though, you and your character have the combined skills to be an even match for the challenge, and this is the most fun and ideal situation, for me at least. Now, perhaps I hit my skill ceiling, and I felt that no matter the upgrade to Sekiro, if I couldn't defeat this guy now with my current skill, then I didn't stand a chance at facing the crazy bosses that I knew the game had in store for me. Here is another quick example. Ogdo Bogdo. Ogdo Bogdo is one of the first mini-bosses you come to in Jedi Fallen Order. Now, I started this game on the highest difficulty, and a similar thing happened where I threw myself at this frog over and over again and got nowhere. Now, it is possible, definitely, to beat him right at the start, but I think that this isn't intended. You're supposed to get frustrated and angry, and like me, leave. Play some of the game, all the while remembering his big, dumb green blob of a body, knowing that eventually you will have acquired a cool new saber and some awesome force abilities, and most importantly, found the most fashionable poncho, which instantly makes you better at the game, as everybody knows. Once you have all this stuff, and you've spent a bit in the skill tree, you scream back in with a vengeance and decimate this Uggo Froggo, who caused you so much grief. And that's a great feeling. Believe me, it is. You have become an unstoppable Jedi. Or have you? To me, this feels a bit manufactured. Sure, I would say that my base skill as a player is better in the late game than it was at the very beginning. I know more about the world than I did before. I know how to use my new force powers, but I would be interested to see how many people could defeat Ogdo Bogdo by starting a new game on the highest difficulty and gunning straight for him. It feels a bit like someone thinking they will be better at something just by getting all the high-end equipment. If you give if you give Rafael Nadal an entry-level tennis racket and equipment, he could still wipe the floor against amateur tennis players, because he's personally just good at the game. Now this is a little unfair. I understand that in Sekiro and Jedi Fallen Order, just getting the new sword powers and force moves is one thing, but knowing how and when to use them most effectively is a different thing. I also know that every player is different, and making a game that hits that sweet spot of challenge for everyone playing is almost impossible. I want to be clear, I don't think having a mix of personal improvement and character improvement is a bad thing, but for me, hitting that sweet spot where your skills and abilities match with the current challenge in games like that can be a little frustrating for me. On the flip side of this are games where character skill is constant, and it's you as a person that gets better over time. Things like Rocket League and Celeste. In Rocket League, for example, you can drive, jump, drift, boost, and that's it. There's a couple of other things, but a pro and me have access to the same toolkit. It's just that the pro has spent more time getting to know its tools. The more you play, you'll learn how to double jump, aerial, wave dash, pinch. At first you'll suck a lot, but if you just keep going for the aerials, you know it's possible, you've seen your opponents do it, so you just keep trying, and eventually you'll get pretty consistent at getting in the air. Then you'll be able to direct yourself in the air. The more you try, the better you get, until you're pulling off ridiculous things like flip resets, double touches, musty flicks, ceiling shots, all of which I can barely do. Quick editor's note here, when looking through my replays for examples of these incredible Rocket League moves, I could only find one, and it was an own goal. So, sorry. If you want to see some actually good Rocket League clips, go check out the subreddit or something. Okay, and back to the video. The cars all have the same stats, and the arenas are consistent. For now, at least. I miss you, Neo Tokyo. You take control of the game, and you have a direct impact on how well you as a player do. Now sure, there are other players and factors you can't control, but even when you're losing, you're always getting better. Let's bring it all back round to Celeste. It is without a doubt one of the best, if not the best platformer games I've ever played, and it perfectly encapsulates the whole point I've been trying to make about player skill. The reason I kept going on the same screen for multiple hours and multiple deaths is because it's all my doing. It's my fault or it's my victory. I just need to get better and I'll be able to complete it. On the surface, the game is cute and simple. You run, jump, wall jump, climb and dash. The game never gives you upgrades to your jump or speed. You give yourself upgrades by slowly improving over time. Okay, so the game does actually give you more jumps, but this isn't so much an upgrade as it is a stage mechanic, of which there are loads, and they are all mostly great, but that is something different entirely. The biggest thing for me is that whilst the game is hard, because I know that I have everything I need to complete this screen, I'm really happy to just try again and again and again and again. I know it's possible, it has to be, so I just need to jump better, have better timing, or even think about it in a different way. Let's take this level that I showed at the start. If you plopped me in front of this at the start of the game, I would look at it and go, it's impossible. This cannot be done. Now I'm not missing any in-game hair extension that makes Madeline jump higher or dash more. I just personally haven't leveled up to understand how to get past this. This is where Celeste excels. It slowly introduces you to new mechanics and lets you come accustomed to how they work before throwing it all at you in different situations. This level here is part of the DLC Farewell, and it involves many advanced mechanics, two of which are wave dashing and wall bouncing. These are challenging to pull off and require quite precise timing and positioning. There's a great video in the description describing these if you don't know, but in simple terms, when you wave dash, you dash into the ground and then jump. If you time it right, you can get a huge jump and can still keep your dash. Wall bouncing is when you dash up into a vertical wall and jump off before slowing down. This allows you to get much higher than if you stopped on the wall and jumped after hanging. I hope that makes sense. Before I got here, I had realised that you could wave dash. I did a sort of kind of wave dash. I just didn't know that you could do it and you could keep your dash afterwards. I was so excited when I got here and realised that after I'd completed all of the A and B sides, I didn't even know that this was a mechanic in the game. In the first area, where you learn to wave dash, it took me a good few minutes to get it right. I wasn't consistent yet, but I could pull it off 1 in 10 times maybe. As you go on, you're asked to wave dash in ever increasing sections of challenge, culminating for me at least in this room. Here I died a lot, but every time I did, I got a little better. I was wave dashing more consistently. I learned that you need to wait a tiny bit when wall bouncing to get extra height. I was learning how far the wave dash got you and when I should leave the platform so I could grab it at the right time. By the time I got to the end of this hellish room, I could consistently wave dash. By spending a lot of time in this screen, I was more ready for future challenges the game had to throw at me. Now for comparison, imagine this game had character skill progression as well as you getting better as you play. I might get here and realise that I can't do it, it's just too hard. I've been at this for 2 hours now, there's got to be something I'm missing. I go elsewhere, I'll leave until I have enough strawberries to buy the mega neon pink hair which allows Celeste infinite dashes. I'd come back to this room and it becomes trivial, or easier at least. I'd get through it after a few tries and probably feel pretty accomplished. But I would have learned nothing, and I wouldn't have had the satisfying experience of improving as a person with my own hard work and perseverance. I want to say, I don't necessarily think that you improving as a person is better or worse than you and your character improving. I can see that 3 hours or more on one screen in Celeste is kind of ridiculous, and most people just don't have the patience for that. Oftentimes when games are hard, the other qualities are good enough to let me power through the difficult times so I can see them. Maybe I'll want to hear the next piece of music, or the next mechanic, or the next room or city or world that I haven't seen yet. That'll help me get through hard times. But there does become a point when it's so hard for me that it doesn't matter how amazing the world is, I can't deal with it anymore. In regards to Fallen Order, I would say that after Ogdo Bogdo, Cal's ever-increasing arsenal of force powers shift the balance of challenge from too hard to too easy way too quickly. There isn't enough time in the game where I felt there was an even match for the challenge that the game was throwing at you. Sekiro was a little different. I never felt I was even close to reaching the balance point for a challenge. It was always just too hard, and maybe that's the point of the game, you know? There's definitely merit in having mega hard games for those people who just love the challenge. And for me, I'm probably just not good enough, and that's fine. That's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I'll never be able to see the cool boss designs and the level designs in Sekiro because this man got in my way. I'll just go and watch a Twitch stream or a better YouTuber and feel good about myself through them. In my opinion, supporting your ability and how that improves over a game with character upgrades in games like Jedi Fallen Order and Sekiro is a good way to emulate the feeling that I get from just getting better at games like Celeste. So what is the whole point of this video? I don't know. I was angry at Sekiro, I enjoyed Celeste, it got me thinking. I think what I'm trying to get at is I like games that have no character progression. I like games that have character progression as well, but the games I find myself playing the most and looking for are ones where I can improve as a person. And I understand that oftentimes those games require much more dedication maybe? And in games like Sekiro and Jedi Fallen Order, the time it takes to get better at the game is lessened by having your character get more skills. So as you go further, it becomes easier to play the game. And that's fine, that's good. I think anyone should be able to pick up a game and feel powerful and strong and that they're doing well. That's a great thing, and that's why games are fun, and that's why people play them. Thank you for watching my video. This is very different from anything else I've ever made, and as such, it's not exactly the most polished thing in the world, but hopefully you enjoyed it nonetheless. If you did, I would very much appreciate you sharing this with people who you think might be interested in it. I'd also be interested to hear what your thoughts are on the topic of this video, character progression versus player progression, and how they both sort of mix together in lots of games. I have a rough plan for a couple more videos that are like this, so if you found this interesting and want to stick around, hit the subscribe button, and maybe at some point this year I will have a second one up. Alright, thanks, I appreciate you all, and we'll catch you on the next time.